Good evening. Today is Tuesday, July 13th. It's the monthly meeting of the Planning Board, Veterans Memorial Building. If everyone could stand, please, and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on the agenda is a request for waiver of site plan review, continuation for 350 Village Street, Woodside Montessori Academy. Is anyone there from, okay, so we had our, actually, if you want to just go ahead and let us know what you were. Come on up, yep.
I just saw your email. Kathleen just sent an email that she hadn't heard from Crickles.
Okay.
So she wanted to continue.
Oh, okay, sorry.
My name?
Yeah, could you let us know who you are, please? Sorry.
Kathleen Gasparo, head of school at Woodside Montessori Academy.
All right, so we get our, we get the a letter back from our consultant. Basically, they said they were fine with everything on your structure. And we had the stuff from before. The thing that we had asked for, which we hadn't gotten, was a okey-dokey from the building commissioner and the fire chief. And those, if you had those two things, we'd be all set to go. But
I know, I kind of left it to someone else.
Okay.
And so I will take care of it myself.
all right,
Do we need to reappear in August?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, if you
Yep.
had had those things,
Yep.
we would have been a slam dunk. So I just want to make sure that that's all taken care of. So
Very good.
sorry to had
That's
to
okay.
come down.
Thank
And-
you, I appreciate it.
Yep, no worries. And next time, like I said, I think that's the only two things that were holding us up. There was no issues at all with the consultant. So you should be in good shape.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks again.
Do you want to continue
Oh.
to 10 and 7? It's not a public hearing, just so that
Yeah.
Kathleen knows when to come back.
Yeah.
At 7:30 on August 10th, will that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can we, we'll continue that. Okay, next item is a modification to special permit for site plan approval, public hearing continued. That would be the gas station at 1105, 1115 Main Street. The applicant wants to withdraw the application for the
Yes, first
permit.
has to open it.
Yep,
first,
but she has to open it, yep.
Town of Millis Office of the Planning Board Notice of Public Hearing. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 11, Mass General Law, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, at 7:35 p.m. in person. An application submitted by 1105, 1115 Main Street LLC, 561 Thomas B. Landers Road, Falmouth, Mass. 02536 is requesting a modification to special permit site plan review of the zoning bylaw of the town of Millis for proposed installation of a 1,000-gallon propane tank for consumer refill at 1105, 1115 Main Street, Millis, Mass. Assessors map 23, parcels 90 and 129. A copy of the application and site plan is on file in the office of the town clerk and the planning board's webpage. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should appear at the time and place designated. Richard Nichols, Chair.
And as I got ahead of myself, the applicant wants to withdraw the application for that permit. So I make a motion that we allow that to be withdrawn.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And the next thing is that they would like to have their consultant fees returned. So I make a motion that we refund $2,500 in consultant fees.
Second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, thank you. All right.
Quick thing, you got to close the public hearing
Nope.
Oh,
after you made the motion.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Just- you
all right, so I'd make a
now.
motion that we close the public hearing.
Second, how come we didn't do that earlier? Motion's been made, the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. All right, we're a little ahead of ourselves, but that's okay.
The next is a discussion, it's not a public hearing, so you can move right on.
Okay, great. Next on the thing is the Dover Road Estate Subdivision, an informal discussion. And I don't know who's going to be presenting for.
I'll stay here if you want to, you're going to stay here next to me, all right? Sure. I got my support here. Good evening, I'm Chris Wilson with GW Site Solutions. With me here is Bob Sullivan. We're here to give you kind of an update of what's going on the site there. We've, I hear myself echoing. We've had like the wettest July ever in history, and we've had some runoff difficulties there that we're trying to get ahead of. We were able to cut the drainage swale in and redirect all of the street runoff that was going out onto Dover Road into the forebay and now into the detention basin. We've put up some straw wattles to accentuate or make sure that that flow does get into the forebay. Bob has reseeded the steep slopes in the back there. Again, we were just there, and it's taking very well.
There's just no sun. We haven't had sun in I don't know how long. So I think once the sun comes out, it will pop real quick.
Some of the issue we had out on the street was the catch basin silt sock that's in it was restricting the flow, and Bob had the DPW come out and they poked a couple holes in the bottom that seemed to alleviate some of the backup that was going on there. It's our plan to stabilize that swale quick with some jute mat, where we get such a lot of rain and runoff and we don't know if this is the end of it. I think that's probably the best way to stabilize it at this point. Get the jute mat with the seed that's in it and use soil staples to hold it down and see if we can't get that to vegetate. That's the last lot. Unfortunately, it's the lot that sees most of the flow come through it, so we want to try our best to get that vegetated quickly here in the next week or two.
Yeah. As long as it dries out and I can loom it.
Right, you definitely.
It's a mud hole right now.
Yeah, so you definitely picked a bad
It's
springtime.
the worst time you can't even put a machine on it.
Normally, it's
Right.
dust in July, not
Right.
mud.
Not rain. I mean, the only reason that the reason that this came up is there was a, significant flow off of it, so.
There is, and then also what I've noticed when it does, the leaves kind of like, it's just a low area with coming off the street or whatever, the leaves sometimes clog it. A couple times I've had to go out there and rake the leaves off of it, and then the water just goes.
Right.
So
Melissa did stop by and saw what you guys had done.
Yeah.
And she did a report on that.
Yeah.
And like you said, obviously as soon as we can
I
get
need
that
some
done.
dry weather for it.
Right. I think the only other thing that we did want to see if we could have you guys clean out that catch basin.
Yeah, I'll talk to Jim about
That's
it,
fine.
and whatever, he can bill
Right.
me for it, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I would recommend at this point too, pulling that silt sock out, because it's restricting the heavier rainflows.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's a
like
hole in the
50-year
bottom of
event.
it now.
Yeah.
For the most
Yeah,
part, I
it
mean,
was-
it backed up the water out into the street and caused it to topple over the crown and,
Yeah.
Well, that's what they do all the time anyhow, with those silt sacks. So,
yeah.
But I had filter fabric in it, but it's the
Right.
same thing, it
Yeah.
doesn't
right.
allow it to flow.
All right, I mean, so that's, realistically, this is what we wanted is.
So hopefully by September, everything will be growing.
Everything will be fine, and we won't be
Yeah.
talking about this
Yeah,
anymore.
Right,
Good.
exactly.
All right.
Just need to get a few weeks here of just dry weather so we can get it loomed and seeded and.
Now, did we want to talk about the,
Well, you want to ask if any residents or anyone has any.
well, I that too, but I had another question, but that's fine. Is there any residents that wanted to comment on that? Okay, if you could just let them step
Sure.
up to the mic, or you could go to the desk. Yeah.
Up here?
Yep.
I live at, well, I own 59 Dover Road, which is the house directly across from where the long driveway is. My concern is that you're saying in September.
Could you address everything to the chair, and also you didn't let us know who you were.
Oh, I'm sorry, Natalie Hunt, sorry. My concern is that they're saying it's going to be September. So from now until September, if the heavy rains come, what's going to happen to my yard?
Well, I can't answer for the contractor, however, realistically, they can answer for you, but they need time for the grass to grow. They have done the swale. I'll let them further that.
But I
If you-
don't think there's gonna be any,
You need to come to the mic just so that people at home can hear.
Unless leaves, sticks, trash gets in that catch basin, if we take the sock out, all the water is now going into detention areas.
Right.
I could show you pictures. Once I put the swale in, it took it all, and it filled up and it drained like it's supposed to.
And then the jute mat will help stabilize
Yeah.
and hold the
Right.
soil better.
Right.
And just to follow up on your question, is that, you know, after, sorry, after he's done, you know, obviously we will just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I
so.
mean, sometimes, you know, like I have a catch basin in front of my driveway, if I don't go out and look at it, because the DPW can't go look at everyone, we have to do our neighborly thing sometimes. Could be just leaves clogging it, and, you know, and the runoff might not be coming off of mine, and most of it wasn't coming off, it was just the rain that was coming off the road, and then, because we had the sock in there, it just wouldn't let that much water go in there, and once we poked a hole in it, it went right down, so.
Okay, well, so and you're up, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we will basically keep an eye on it also.
Yeah.
So my question
that's-
is, what happens in, you know, let's say 6 months, if I have the same issue? I mean, I showed you the video of the
Right.
water just sitting in my yard. You couldn't even see my grass. I mean,
Because
I understand that. What I'm saying is, what happens if that happens again? What is, do you know what it is? It's my
No, I
property.
understand your question. You know, let's see. What we can plan for is, we can plan for normal events. So like we had we had one of those, you know, gully washers. And, I mean, I think the design would be, and I'll refer this back to Melissa, you know, like at my house, I live on a flat area. When some of those heavy rains, I had sheet flow going over my lawn. Just, there was so much water, it flowed. So, you know, it's kind of a,
The issue I'm having is that prior to these houses being built, when the old house was still there, I never had these problems with heavy rain. So
Right.
my concern is that there are 4 brand-new houses there. There's a hill that was higher than it was before. That's going to continue to happen. I don't see how that's not going to continue to happen. That's my concern. Melting snow, like, well, I mean, that's what I'm,
Yeah, so after the issue was brought up, I went out a month ago and saw all the water coming off the driveway straight into the street and identified that they hadn't put the swale along the driveway yet. So the design is that the water gets captured by the swale along the driveway and it channels it into the detention basins that are right there before it gets to Dover. So that swale wasn't capturing, it was just running down the driveway. So in the last week or two, they actually constructed the swale. It's dirt right now, it's not grass, but they did put the swale in there. And when I went by yesterday morning after all the rain we got on the weekend, you could tell that the water was making it to the swale. And there was a bunch of sediment in the sediment forebay that had collected, so I think
is
the
that the
swale.
water that sits on the side of the road? Do you get what I'm saying? Like when it comes down, it's like in the road, but on the side of the road,
Well,
where
it's
the house is. And when
The
cars
new
go
road?
through it,
on Dover, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the design on the site is to capture what's coming off of the new road before it gets to Dover, so it's not adding to the, it's not adding to the flow that's in Dover. So theoretically, them putting the swale in will capture the runoff from the site, put it into those stormwater, not the catch basin, but the infiltration basins that are in the grass.
okay.
And that's where it should infiltrate and not add flooding to the road. So
I
hopefully
mean,
we
to
see that.
expand that,
through the chair, please.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
To expand on that, the driveway is super elevated from right to left. And at the time, the swale hadn't been constructed yet, and the material from the stockpiling and stuff was built up like a natural berm along the edge of the pavement when it went in, so that they needed to excavate and get that so it would drop into the swale. It was running right down the edge of the driveway. That's now in place, so the water gets into the swale and then it goes into the forebay and sits, and some of the sediment drops out. Then it goes into the detention basin. I think if you remember the last storm, that detention basin filled and emptied in the next 24 hours like it's supposed to. So, I mean, that's what's going to happen in the bigger, the storm events now, is that pond will fill rather than that water going out into the street. It's infiltrated into the ground and let out on a slower rate than where the swale wasn't created before. So, you know, that swale's in place. Once the soil is stabilized, then that'll take care of a lot of the silt that's there. It's hard with the open soil to get the grass to grow with this rain here, but hopefully, you know, we get enough sunshine. I'm gonna put in an extra layer of, I don't know if you've ever seen it on the sides of the highways, the mat with the seeding in it.
Yeah.
That should help hold the soil until it gets a chance to germinate.
So I guess my question is this, too. I understand what you're saying, but what if this doesn't work? So what are my options at that point?
Actually, Melissa, so what, that's a good, I mean, because I was thinking
Right.
about,
No, I mean, hopefully you see a difference now that the swale's in.
Yeah, I'm talking
Even
about
now?
long-term, like, so I get what you're saying, but what happens if it doesn't work? What do I do now? Do I have to come back here and say, oh, guess what, that didn't work?
I mean, I think we'd have to reevaluate it. That was the engineered plan, the designed plan. Theoretically, it should work. If it doesn't, then we would need to look at why,
Right.
and, you know.
So I guess what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be here? I guess for me, to make me feel more comfortable about this, is there something that I could have in writing saying, here's what we have planned out, here's what you get to do if this doesn't work? Because I feel like I'm just sort of sitting here waiting, hoping that it works, and if it doesn't, then I'm right back where I started.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the board has the plan that's, you know,
you've asked a good question. I mean, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I've seen so what we have is, we have you, which had sheet flow going across, and they had an engineered plan that is gonna work, is what we're hoping.
Right.
And, you know, so you're saying, what if it doesn't work?
Right.
And, I would say, first of all, I'd like to give it some time to let the grass grow and let their mat go and see what happens. And then I think we could reassess it. I think right now, it is mud and more mud. And, you know, to be fair to them and to be fair to you, I'd say, let's see what happens. I mean, this is an informal discussion.
Yeah.
But we do want to make sure that, you know, the interests of all parties are taken care of. I can't go one way or the other. We have to give them a chance, and
No, I
we have to
understand
see
that.
what happens with time. I can't tell you what's going to happen if, you know, with the rain we've been having, we might have more crazy rain. And you may, even if it was perfect, and even if the old house was there, you might have still had sheet flow, you just didn't notice it. So.
I can honestly
no,
tell you that
yeah.
we were there. I've had that house for
Yeah.
over 20 years.
Yeah.
That never happened, ever.
Okay, well, fair enough. All right, so,
Mr. Chairman, also, the catch basin has a siltation device in it that was restricting the flow. If that wasn't there, a lot of that flow would have never got to your house. I mean, it's unfortunately, you know, you put a device in that, but you don't expect to get a 50-year storm that's going to cause it to back up the water out in the street. Once that, if you go by there, you'll notice this little yellow tab
Yeah, I saw
around,
that.
all inside the structure is a container that catches and is supposed to filter out all of the silt, but it also restricts the flow that's going into it, so that the water wasn't able to dissipate down into the street drainage as quickly as it should.
No, I appreciate that. My question still remains. That's my.
yeah, so I'm going to give you a non-answer. What I can tell you is, we're going to, I'd say, at our next meeting, let's reassess where we are.
Okay.
And if, Mr. Sullivan, if you just, you know, you wouldn't have to bring the engineer if you just want to, either, you know, we could have either Beta take a look at it or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
the hope is that everything works like the engineering says it's gonna,
Right.
you know, and that you don't have a problem. We don't, you know, that's not what we're here to
That's my
do
hope
is.
as well.
Right. So, why don't we'll set it for the next meeting and we'll check back and see what happens. And I'll also ask the question, you know, we'll have to talk to Melissa about it. I mean, we've never really had anything that we had engineered that, you know, didn't specifically work. I'm not saying that this won't work 100%, but, you know, sometimes things happen.
Yeah, I think it is important. Obviously, there's a lot of sediment now because we
Right.
have the soil and it's carried into that basin and it's almost covered that
Yeah,
pipe.
he's gonna have to clean it, yeah.
That needs to be cleaned out continuously so that you have the capacity in there and it doesn't compromise the subsoils by getting into the infiltration basin
Right.
now, and that getting clogged up with sediment.
But once they poked the hole, within 5 minutes, the water was down,
Right.
like it looked like.
Right, no, the audience can't hear you, but,
Okay.
so what, no, that's fine. What he said, the developer said that the once that the catch basin was opened up and the silt sack was, it took care of it. So I think we need to circle back in a month and let's see where we're at.
Okay,
Does that sound fair enough?
yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
It's really not an
Yeah, well, I should have got that, but I forgot.
Well, before he walks up.
Oh, Bob, hey, Bob, sorry, I just got something, John McVeigh, sorry, sorry about that. John McVeigh had asked a question, which had come up. He'd asked about the slope stabilization, I think you said you had done that, and
And I can
just-
show, I
No,
can
no,
show
don't
you
need-
pictures on the 25th of June, it got resprayed, and
Yeah.
it's, if you drive by there, it's already
Okay.
germinating.
I'm just
But like I
reading-
said, it needs sun now.
Right, no, I'm just reading the
Yeah.
memo.
Yeah,
And then the other one was that we saw the bond for the street. which
Yeah.
Jim's on vacation, so that, I saw that bond, that was fine.
I gave it back, I gave it to him when he was, because I was told to give it to him back when we got the,
Yeah.
started.
That's fine.
And
then-
I just gave Camille the updated one.
Right, and then the other question was, and this was from the John McVeigh, which is the Board of Health. He had said that there was the bond should be available for the stabilization, but I'm just saying, if you've taken care of it, then I
Right.
would imagine it's a non-issue.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
nothing in their requirement said I needed to post the bond. You guys
Okay.
were the only one that asked for the bond, so.
Okay. All right, that was it. Just,
Okay.
I just got the memo, just, they
Thank
handed
you.
it to me. Thank you, appreciate it.
It's in your packet.
I know, I was busy. All right, so the next item on the agenda is special permit application for with site plan approval, public hearing continued for 1480 and 1486 Main Street.
Town of Millis Office of the Planning Board notice of public hearing. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 11, Mass General Law, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, at 7:45 PM in person. An application submitted by GTE Millis LLC to 251 North Pearl Street, Brockton, Mass. 02301, is requesting a special permit, site plan approval of the zoning bylaw of the town of Millis for proposed construction of a marijuana cultivation facility located at 1480 and 1486 Main Street, Millis, Mass. Assessors map 21, lots 9, 26, 28, 29, 30, and map 32, lot 2. Owner, A.H. Cedar LLC, Peter Harkey. Copy of the application and site plan is on file in the office of the town clerk and on the planning board's webpage. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should appear at the time and place designated. Richard Nichols, Chair.
And this was to be continued without discussion until August 10th at, what time?
Let's see, we're gonna do Kathleen Gasparo at 7:30, so how about 7:35, actually?
All right, and so that'll be continued until 7:35. All right, next, Oh, we
We
have
need
to-
a motion to close it.
can I get a motion to close the public hearing? All right,
Continue.
continue, sorry, continue. Motion's been made and seconded, all in favor? Aye, great, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda. Special permit application with waiver of site plan approval, public hearing, Dan Merrickin for 1370, 1372 Main Street, open storage of equipment to display.
Town of Millis Office of the Planning Board notice of public hearing in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 11, Mass General Law. The Planning Board will hold a public hearing in person on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, at 7:55 in the Veterans Memorial Building, room 229, 900 Main Street, Millis, on the application of Steve Reiter, Papa Giorgi LLC, 45 Irving Street, Suite 1, Millis, Mass., requesting a special permit with a waiver of site plan approval under Section 5, Use Regulations, Table 1, Wholesale Transportation and Industrial, Number 14, Open Storage of Equipment, of the zoning bylaws of the town of Millis for display rental equipment at 1370, 1372 Main Street, Millis, Mass. Map 21, parcels 16 and 11. copy of the application is on file in the office of the town clerk and on the planning board's webpage. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should appear at the time and place designated. Richard Nichols, Chair.
The plans that you have in front of you are for this application.
Yep, I already read it. So, all right, Dan, could you, do you have the thing to put in the easel to show everyone, or?
Before I do that,
Yes.
you can't go forward with a special permit request because you need 4 voting members.
All right.
The supermajority vote. We could go forward with a site plan waiver discussion with the 3 of you, or we could just push everything off to August 10th.
What do you want to do?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, let's just push it up to August 10th.
Okay.
So what's he going to rent? Like,
It's like a Taylor rental.
oh, really? Cool.
It's not Taylor rental,
No,
but
I get
it's
it.
like that.
All right.
So you have to make a motion.
Yep. All right, so I make a motion to continue the special permit application for 1372 Main Street,
Second.
and that'll be continued till August 10th.
That, see, how about 7:45?
Okay. All right, so August 10th at 7:45. All right, here, we'll leave that there, so you can take that back.
There was a second, we voted unanimously.
I don't remember, did we end up voting on it? I can't remember.
No, you didn't, no, I seconded, we didn't vote.
Okay, all right, so the motion was made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda would be 376 Orchard Street, oh, that's just an endorsement of the plans, so we can just go do that now, or do we want to do it at the end?
You do need to vote to approve
Okay.
the plans.
All right,
To and then endorse. Yeah, you just need to make a motion to vote to approve plans. Plans having Sparhawk Academy, 376 Orchard Street, site plan.
all right. I make a motion that we approve the plans for Sparhawk Academy, 376 Orchard Street, dated July 9th, 2020.
Last revised,
Oh,
January 21st.
Sorry, latest revision, January 21st, 2021. Motion's been made.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
It's up to you if you want to sign it now or wait till the end of the meeting.
Just wait till the end. Dan will be here anyhow, so we can just wait till the end of the meeting.
Pick 'em up tomorrow.
Well, we'll send him tonight, yeah. Okay, great. All right, so next on the agenda is Acorn Place, Senior Residential Development, informal discussion. And this is from regarding some parking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dan Merrick with Legacy Engineering. This is an informal discussion on the Acorn Place project. I think if you look at the plans that I gave you right now, in the original design, we had some extra parking spaces along one side of the entrance roadway. And those additional spaces proved to be very popular with the unit owners. So Mr. Fox would like to put them on the opposite side of the street as well. Not everywhere, but in the front village area, between most of the units on the far side of the road, and then down in the rear village area, only maybe in 3 or 4 locations. That basically provides more parking for the development as a whole. We're proposing to then reduce some of the visitor parking spaces that we had proposed, just because I think at that point it becomes unnecessary. So if you look at the sketch before you, we're adding a total of 20 parking spaces, and we would take away 9 of the visitor spaces. So that leaves you a net gain of 11 parking spaces in the development. Now, they did go in and binder some of these parking areas. They're too small. They will need to be enlarged, and they basically, we don't have to relocate some trees, just move some trees back a few feet and extend those parking spaces so they don't interfere with the sidewalk on that side of the road. But this is just me kind of introducing this topic of discussion for you and fielding any questions that you have.
All right, well, that was one of the questions we had, was the street trees, obviously.
Yeah, the trees and any impacted landscaping will be reconfigured to fit the spaces. I also would note that, there are a number of, some of the owners have health issues, so it's nice to be able to provide closer additional parking spaces for some of those units. That's why Bob wants to do this.
And we had Melissa take a look at it. Did you want to run through those couple of items that you had there, Melissa?
Just the initial thoughts were obviously the trees, where they're going, just making sure that they're still street trees and don't end up being, side yard, backyard trees.
Sure, tree relocation.
Right. There's a space between units 29 and 30 and 33 and 34 that conflicts with the handicap ramp.
Yes, I'll have to reconfigure the location of that handicap ramp. Or actually, I might be able to move those spaces around a little bit.
Okay.
I'll take a look at that.
This parking space dimensions, are they 21 feet? That's what it looked like from taking it off on the plan.
Correct. 21 feet.
Measured from the back of the sidewalk.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So then the 5 parking spaces on sheet 8 that are being removed, those are paved right now, so you're going to remove the pavement?
We're going to remove the pavement,
I'm just turning it back to grass.
make it grass, yep.
And then over by, also on sheet 8, by unit 27 and 28, over by the infiltration basin, that one didn't have any extra spaces, and I just didn't know if there was a reason that unit wasn't getting extras, or if that was missed and we need them.
No, Bob didn't think he needed to over there. We don't have them on every single building. Like in the rear village, for example, there's parking in the center island, so we basically put them in the areas where the parking is not proximal to that. So we talked about 27 and 28 with Bob, and he didn't think he needed a pair of spaces on that building.
Okay. Those were the thoughts that struck me when I looked at it.
And and we'd also asked about the impervious surface, but it isn't all that much square footage, Melissa said, so that shouldn't be, you should have enough in that to...
Yeah, there's not a lot. That's why one of the reasons why we're taking out the extra visitor spaces, just to keep the impervious coverage down.
Okay. Anyone else on the board have any?
No.
Did you write a memo, Melissa?
I just sent an email to the board, but I can send it to you.
Oh, no, I don't, I just didn't, if you had it. That's all.
Yeah, no, it was just a quick email this afternoon.
That's fine, thanks.
All right, well, I'd say the thing is, obviously, we want to make sure the street trees are put back in where they are, and
Yes,
there are a couple little items, it seems like it makes sense to me, and it's not really a big change,
okay.
so. Yep, I'm going to do that next. Are there any questions from the audience? You have to come up and identify yourself at the mic.
Hi, good evening. I'm Barbara Campbell, 11 Acorn Place. What spaces are being taken out? Between what homes? Because we weren't aware of this.
Not between any homes. There's an area when you come in the main drive and you turn left There's some area where there were some visitor spaces that are paved presently along the side of the road. They're not for unit parking. Those are proposed to be removed. And then in the rear village, there's a similar situation where some visitor spaces are proposed to be removed. No spaces in between units are proposed to be removed.
Okay.
We're adding units, adding parking.
And those are going to be extended because of the size? Is that correct?
They're
Okay.
going to be increased in size.
Thank you.
Oh, yep, go ahead.
Rich Campbell, 11 Acorn Place. Quick question, what is the size of those spaces, the additional spaces?
9 by 21.
9 by 21? And that's from the street to the end, or from the sidewalk to the end?
Well, on the sidewalk side, it will be from the back edge of the sidewalk to the end of the parking space, 21 feet.
21 feet, great, thank you.
Anyone else? No. Okay.
Actually, I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I see there's a clubhouse here. So, assuming a resident has a function of the clubhouse for guests, there's only going to be 6 parking spaces for guests? And at
Well,
least
plus
one of those is
there's 6
handicap.
more on the opposite side of the island. So there's 12 spaces there total.
There's 6 and you're taking the other 10 out, right?
We're proposing to
What am I
take
missing?
4 out of there, so there's 16
Oh, you're
now.
only taking
So
4
we're only
out of
going to
10.
take
Okay.
4,
I'm sorry, yes.
and we would reduce that down to 12
Okay, thank you.
instead of 16.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so you'll have that formally set up for us for the next meeting?
I will.
Okay, great. All right, so the next item, along with this at Acorn Place, was we had some concerns on the traffic flow. And so, Dan, since you're here, I'd like you to walk through the new development and how that was set up, and the emergency egress road. I'd like you to walk through how that was set up and. Sure.
So we have an emergency egress that comes from the rear village area out to Acorn Street, but it was not intended to be used for construction access. It is only there for fire department access. So the intention was that all traffic would come through the Hickory Hill subdivision to get in and out of the development, and that emergency access is going to be gated off and will only be able to be used by police or fire.
And that was when we went through and approved the plans.
That was
That
part
had
of
been walked through
that
and-
was part of the original
And
approval
that
for
was
the
also
Acorn Place.
walked through with the fire department and
Yeah.
police.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
correct.
All right, so I think there were some other residents that had some questions that they wanted to bring up.
Kevin Jones, 30 Pearl Street. Thank you for the time. Afford us this opportunity to discuss our concerns. I
If you-
recently
If
reached...
you just
out-
mind pulling the mic up a little
Oh,
bit.
sure.
Sorry, thank you.
I recently reached out to the select board because I had heard in front of the select board this proposal to add an additional, I think, about several units that was accompanied about like 32 units. I think it's about 16 buildings that's going to go on in the back. So I think that would extend construction time for a considerable amount of time. And looking into this, I came across the pre-construction notes for Emerson Place. And I saw that the planning board had put in place a truck route to avoid going through the residential areas of, I think it's Rolling Meadow. And put in place a truck route to go up Kerr Street and avoid Rolling Meadow as much as possible. And I just wanted to see if the same consideration could be put in place for Hickory Hills to avoid that neighborhood, use the access road, and avoid the trucks going through the neighborhood.
Right, so it's two different developments.
Yes.
And so when that was set up, it was known that the access was going to be through the development that your home is in. There's no other exit out. So we had never intended on opening up an emergency egress for the convenience of the neighborhood. Not to say that, having truck traffic go through is something desirable, but, the Acorn Place was going to be built out when you bought your home, and the trucks were allowed to go up and down it, because right now, it's a, and Dan, this has been approved, correct? So right now, the developer owns that road, correct?
Yeah.
So basically, it's right now, Mr. Fox owns that property to drive up and down with vehicles, correct?
You talk about Hickory Hills.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Streets, yeah.
Right. So,
Well, that no longer be the case once the roads are then turned over to the town?
then there's still public roads. So I live over near,
But the builder would no longer
let me
own those
finish.
roads,
I
correct?
live over near Glen Ellen, okay?
Yes.
So they're building something over there.
Yes.
So there are construction trucks
Yep.
that drive up and down the road. We can't stop trucks from using the public roads. UPS comes to the house,
Yes.
FedEx comes to the house. We can't say, Mr. Truck, you're big, and you can't come down the street. It doesn't work that way. So, as much as, like I said, it's not fun, when I back out my driveway in the morning and I forget that they're building a thing, and I look up and I see a big truck coming at me, I got it. But, we're not planning on opening up a road specifically for emergency access to truck traffic as a temporary measure.
Okay, even in light of the fact that, I know they're two different neighborhoods, but I know you specifically went out of, I wouldn't say specifically went out of your way, but you did take into account that it was a residential area and wanted to mitigate traffic as much as possible.
They had two open
Yes.
ends. That was the thing with that, is that
Okay.
they had two open ends, and that one of the ones had, we had the opportunity to, do better by that neighborhood, because, they could just send the trucks a different way. If we had had if you had two openings, we could have thought of maybe having the traffic go a different way. We don't have that option.
Okay. So the access road isn't considered another option?
It's, the word emergency at the beginning of it
Okay.
makes it as it wouldn't be an option in my mind.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Bravo.
Melissa, maybe, or Dan, one of you could correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the road that's in there, the emergency access, is not structurally designed to take constant, the wear and tear or the support of vehicles back and forth. It's wasn't designed as such.
It's not a paved road.
So it's not, it's not something that, it's not intended to be designed to be used as a road, and it's not, wasn't approved to be a road when construction is completed. So it would not currently support construction vehicles to be used for such. So that's one of the differences between the development that's over off of Rolling Meadow, because that was designed to have there's going to be two ways in and out. So those will be both permanent roads. This emergency access is just that. It's just in the, hopefully it'll never be used by the fire department. There'll be no need for it, but it's not structurally designed to take construction vehicles going in and out all the time. That's one of, it's not wide enough, it's not strong enough. So that's one of the issues that arises now in trying to come a few years later after the fact and turn an emergency access into an actual road.
Plus, there are other homes over there. That's a residential neighborhood, too.
Right. And it's not, to do that, you would actually then be infringing on the setbacks for the properties that emergency access goes through. So, unfortunately, that's not what the whole layout was just designed as the chair was referring to in, over at Glen Ellen, it's just a different phase.
Yes.
Of, when you have multiple phases, and usually it's not unusual where phase one is the phase that's closest to the road. So if you're in phase one, they're driving past you to get to phase two to build out to phase three. you know, the good news is it's not going to be forever. It's not like that's, you know, the construction won't, you know, hopefully will. I mean, I'm not even going to ask about construction because that's so not on, that's so over my pay grade as to timing. But it's, you know, so that's not an option that we can actually do here because that wasn't designed that way to begin with.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Good evening. I'm Robin Hornstein. I live at 34 Pearl Street. I live right before the condos begin, where it appeared that it was a cul-de-sac when we originally came and made an offer to buy the house. And then we had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Fox and Wally and some of the other people. And we were told that that egress road, are you calling it? That that was going to be used by vehicles, that we wouldn't have to worry about construction vehicles coming down our street while the rest of the neighborhood was being developed. It was at that time that we were informed it wasn't going to remain a cul-de-sac. After we had made our offer, we were told about that, but we were told we wouldn't have the construction trucks coming by. I don't know if Mr. Fox believed that himself at the time, and if the planning board or someone else changed it and said, no,
Yeah,
it
can
can
we
only...
can just, and I don't mean to be rude on this, you know, this isn't really something that we can discuss. What interactions you have with other people, all I can talk about is the decision that was made. The decision that was made when we approved the plan was that the next phase was going to go, the traffic would go through, the access road was emergency access road only. Everything else, as much as, you know, I understand it may be difficult for you, is nothing we really can do or talk about.
So, Mr. Nichols, are you saying that the planning board made that decision that it could only be an emergency access road forever?
No, it was presented to us as it was an emergency access road. That's what the plan is approved for.
Okay.
If the developer wanted to come back and say, hey, we want to do something different with it, they could do that.
Okay.
But right now, the plan, as we approved it, has it as an emergency egress road. That's how it's approved. We can't go ahead and say, hey, we want to change it, because, you know, we don't have the authority to do that.
Okay, and the developer is?
The developer, if they decide they wanted to come and modify the plans, they could come back to us and say, hey, we would like to modify the
Okay.
plans.
And the
They would have to
developer
come
by
back.
name is Mr. Fox?
Mr.
Okay,
Fox, yeah.
great. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, Rich Campbell, 11 Acorn Place. Quick question. So right now, I believe there's a gate there and it's locked. So if there's an emergency,
The fire department has the key.
how fast can they get there?
Get there fast.
They
No,
can-
I'm serious, because if something happens, like an explosion with propane or something like that, we got to get the heck out of there. We can't, be looking around for the key. We just need
Well,
the part.
the emergency egress is not for the residents, so they don't hand out, and I'm not being wise, they
No,
don't hand
I-
out keys. The fire department can go down, they have a knock spot, they have a key.
Okay.
They can get in, and the fire department can get in there very quickly. So if there's an emergency, they can get there.
The tree goes down, et cetera. So if
Yeah.
they're not there, we just call the fire department, they'll come down.
Yeah, the fire department, I mean, that's the reason we do this in, like, commercial construction. The fire department has a key, and usually what happens is they have a key, and then they break the gate down, and then they bash the front door in, because that's what they do. But they have a key.
All right. Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? All right, so the next item on the agenda
Thanks for your
is...
time.
Yep, thank you, Dave. Regency at Glen Ellen bond reduction request.
And Ted was not able to attend tonight's meeting, so we
Right.
have all the information from,
Yeah, hold on.
from Toll Brothers and Melissa's comments.
Yep,
Right.
hold on, we're just gonna... All right, I'm just going to go through quickly what Toll Brothers is looking to do. So Beta put a bond estimate together for the remaining road and infrastructure work for Phase 2. Right now, we're holding a little over $1 million being held for work remaining in Phase 2. The previous bond reduction had gone through. There were some items that Beta had wanted to hold in the bond. Loam and seeding, cleaning and finalizing drainage basins after site stabilization, top course roadway paving, approximately 60% of curbing and sidewalks, street signs, lighting and landscaping, and an as-built survey. They want to hold money for that, and they recommend that the bond be reduced to $625,500 for Phase 2 construction as detailed in the attached worksheet. And this has a 20% contingency. So what this does is, we, and our previous chair has gone through this before, we make sure that we hold money on the developer in case Toll Brothers decides to go off and, do something different. And that way we'll be able to finish the road and get everything set so the town could accept it and the people in the area would be able to use the road. So I make a motion that we...
You have 3 different, you want to do them separately?
Yeah.
Should be done separately, yeah.
Yeah, so I have to read the other one too? You can read the next one.
Well, we got to do a motion for this one first.
All right, I make a motion that we approve the reduction of the Phase 2 construction to 6, this one,
Phase 2,
yeah.
not 2D.
Okay. That we reduce the amount of the bond to $625,500 for Phase 2 construction.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Sorry. What did I do with this one?
Yeah, let's take mine.
Okay. All right. The next one would be for work remaining in Phase 2D. Right now, we have a $455,700 bond that's being held. Beta's recommending that the new bond can be set at $302,700 for Phase 2 construction. I make a motion that we approve that amount.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I was just taking out of mine. That's fine, thank you. Here. All right, so this is Phase 1 bond reduction. So right now, we have a $811,730 bond is currently being held for work remaining in Phase 1. This one, they had substantial completion, they've done the substantial completion of the remaining drainage installation. Sewer pump station number 1 is 100% complete and in use. Installation of sidewalk, street signs, lighting, and landscaping, and installation of the public parking area for the open space. These are all items that they've completed in Phase 1. So that they said they could reduce their bond to $394,100 for Phase 1 construction. So I make a motion that we approve the bond to be reduced to $394,100.
Second.
Good. All right,
No,
motion.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
You read faster.
No, you have mine.
Oh, I do. Oh, sorry. So the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, wait a minute, one thing. Oh, sorry, one thing on that. Just on the Phase 1, part of the money that they're holding is that they had puddling from icy conditions in Orchard Street, and when I drove by, Melissa, the other day, they're getting their runoff from it's the very edge of basically the land. It's almost like they should put a swale in, because the water's running down, and it's dribbling down the front area, and it's puddling along the wall, along the road.
Okay.
So it's doing this, that's what it did over the winter.
And it's doing it again.
It did it again in the heavy rain, so I think they just need to, if they just dug a swale
Swale,
to
yeah.
kind of push it, because it did the same, and what happens then, it gets trapped between the edge of the pavement and the dirt. So-
I know he had reached out to Bowler, their engineer, and he had contacted me, and we talked about it, and they said they'd send somebody maybe to shoot some grades and look at it, but then it kind of,
Fell off the map.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we
So
ought
I
to,
just, I put it in here kind of as a reminder
Right.
for we clear this bond.
yeah,
You know,
okay.
That would be there's actually 3 bullets here of
Yeah, no, I
things
saw
that are
that.
cleanup items.
Right,
kind of.
in the one I brought up with the entrance to the walking trail. And
Right.
even before that, I went down to the walking trail. They put that in at the end of the year. And I went down there finally in late February to walk down there, and they obviously had done it just enough to get it done. So they, not that it has to be beautiful, but, you know, there were chunks and rocks and divots, and, you know, it should be at least reasonable for people to try to walk down the walking trail without getting
Right.
killed. So, all right, okay, so that, we're all set, we voted on that, right? Okay, take that one back there, that's yours.
Scott wanted to put a- Scott wants to-
Oops, sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, yeah. Scott Fusey, 411 Union. You did bring up the walking trail. I think it was there probably back in May. It looked pretty decent. It looked like it's still a work in progress, but I did want to thank the planning board, because I know that's one of the things way back when that the community wanted, so the parking looks nice and stuff. But it looked like they were still working on the walking trail. They had the berms out and stuff. So I'm sure over time it's going to get nicer. It looked like they put some bridges in and stuff. So it is a nice addition to it. So it looks like it's coming along, and they are working on it. So it looked good when I was up there. But that was late spring. It was probably like May, mid-May, early June. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's do reappoint. Let's see. Nicole?
Actually, we can't do that.
Oh, 'cause
can't do
we need-
minutes,
we need-
Because I can't
No, we
vote
could,
on that, right?
oh, you can't, oh, you're right. How many, we don't have a
Put that
quorum.
in the, well, because we're not meeting until September, so we have time at the August meeting to reappoint you.
Okay, all right, so we'll have to
Yeah.
skip that.
So that would be for
Yeah.
August 10th.
So we're gonna postpone reappointing Nicole as the planning board rep for the Community Preservation Committee. Sewer moratorium discussion. So I went to the select board meeting, along with George. I think it now, yeah, I was there too. And I had a couple of points that I had said to Camille. So the planning board understands the limitations of the sewer capacity and the duty of select board, who authorizes the use of this capacity to distribute the remaining portions thoughtfully. So we have a percentage of the sewer capability that's left, and, you know, we have to be prudent on how we do it, which is exactly what they said, the select board. A true moratorium will effectively shut down most new development in this town for not just the short term, but the long term, as developers will need to spend money to get plans to the point of presentation to the select board, even to be able to ask for sewer. So if we put a moratorium in place, developers are going to be concerned about looking at Millis if they need sewer, because they don't want to go and take the gamble on, you know, getting the plans together if there's a chance that they won't get sewer. And the select board did say that they were going to have special exemptions, possibly, because they're in charge of it, and they can do that. But even with that, a developer isn't going to want to take the risk. 40B plans were mentioned as getting a priority. Not all of the 40B projects, as much as we need affordable housing, and 40B is a good way to do it. Some developments are better than others. Some of them actually give us a higher count of units that are counted towards the goal of affordable housing. And some of them are used by developers to put in the minimum number to be able to build units. So although we do want to make sure that we try to work towards getting more affordable housing, same thing, we need to be prudent on how we do that. The other thing is that I found out from a select board member from another town, the state actually is looking towards using the sewer capacity towards industrial development. So they actually want us to try, meaning, you know, towns, because it helps the tax rate. They want to try, excuse me, they want to try to get more industry, and Millis also wants to do that. We want to try to change our tax base or get more things towards helping not having to put all of the taxes on residents, because right now, that's who pays the bulk of everything in town is residential. So having industrial would be one way of trying to get, you know, another revenue source. There was another talk of other ways to handle the sewage for developments as a way forwards. With that, Millis, as we all know, is a very wet town. There's not a lot of buildable property, number one, and then to have buildable property and then have to have a sewage treatment plant, like a septic system on it, is going to be a tough area to find. You know, it sounds like a good option, but it may not be that practical. And the other thing is perception. So what we want to do is how people look at Millis in coming here to build. You know, how do they want us? Do we want to look at? Do we want to perceive people to perceive us as we're willing to work with you, and you know we have we're you know trying to work together as a team, or we're trying to look towards development, or are we looking to look like we're more shutting the door to development? So that's something we have to think about also. So we need to be thoughtful in the overall process to achieve the town's long-term development goals, but not make it so burdensome it's not worth the effort to developers and people coming into the town. So those are just my thoughts on the what I took from the select board. And Alan, you were there also. You had a couple of.
Yeah, one of my concerns, and I didn't bring it up in the meeting, but when they're measuring the outflow, they didn't say when the measurements were taken. We've had schools closed, public buildings closed, restaurants closed, gym closed, Ann and Hope gone. That eventually these buildings, if they haven't opened already, will be repopulated. So if that wasn't part of the measured outflow, that needs to be considered as well as something that will come back. So we may actually be a little closer to that 102% than we think we are.
Well, the 102% is what they do that is by connection. So right now, there are a certain number of houses that they put sewer past the house, and they didn't tie into it. Right. So I can't remember the exact number, but there is a certain amount of capacity. And then also, there's, you know, septic is considered 440 gallons per person or per bedroom in the state sanitary code. So what they're saying is now with the new low-flow toilets, low-flow sinks and faucets, which is good, we're actually reducing the amount of gallons that are produced. So what's going on with the select board is there's the math, which is what's telling them. There's the actual flows, which they actually measure. To your point of, you know, there are some things that are not open, but there's not a ton. It's not like, you know, it's not like Boston, where in Boston, when the pandemic and no one went to work, there was less people because there were less people. Right. In here, it may not be as much, but that is a consideration. Yeah.
But you know, I feel that an outright moratorium is probably a little heavy-handed. I think we need to allow anything that's already got an open building permit. I think we need to continue to allow development in the industrial zone, but I don't have a problem with subdivisions and single-family homes being put on a moratorium until we resolve the issue.
The only thing that I brought up with it is unfortunately with towns, and you know, hopefully it'll be different with this, is that for us, we wanted to do like to bring something forward to town meeting. It takes us quite a while, just due to the process, to get things pushed forwards. Right now, there's a lot of construction going on. If we stop and we take the time to put together something that's thought out and gets through all of the process and committee and whatever, and a year and a half goes by, that's a year and a half of development in the cyclical nature of building that we will miss. And, who knows what opportunities, we may end up missing. I mean, there's the marijuana facility, possibly that's going in the end. I don't know if they've gotten approval for sewer or not, but, they were talking 26 jobs, millions of dollars a year, and...
Well, this is the industrial area.
Correct,
I'd
right.
really like to see remain
Right.
open for development.
Right, so but if we put a moratorium, then that would be...
But you could do it by zone.
You could, yeah, no, so then anyhow, but at the very end of it, we went to it, not all of us, but a couple of us went to it, and it's something that is going to impact the town short-term and long-term. So, and like I said, the select board is doing their job and managing it, and it's not something that I envy them having to deal with, because when you're running out of something, that's not a good thing. So,
I think ultimately we either need to buy capacity from someone, or which probably isn't available,
right,
or we are long-term going to need to build our own facility.
Yeah, which we can't afford.
Right.
So that's
we're in a tough situation.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My concern over the idea, and I was not at the meeting, just in reviewing what you've written and what you've both said, my concern, the idea of an outright moratorium, is that we're going to put in place a perception that our town is no longer available, we are no longer open to any sort of construction. And even if that moratorium is, I mean, you could say 6 months, once it goes into place, it would be longer to address this issue. It's going to be 4 or 5 times longer than that to overcome that perception in the outside world. There have been perceptions in Millis previously that Millis is not conducive to small business, that Millis is not conducive because we have very active boards that insist upon developers following the rules. And last month, just coming to the top of my mind because I was just watching the last month's meeting that I missed this morning, the 1460, the new GTE, 10 years ago, there was a sports complex that wanted to go into that spot. It ended up going to Norfolk because what they wanted to do didn't meet the bylaws. They wanted things that were going to violate the conservation regulations, and Millis was not willing to bend. They went to another town for a larger lot that didn't have the conservation issues, but then there was this one issue was used as an example. Millis is not conducive, they're not open to new business. So I think, I say this as a member of the Economic Development Committee as well, that the town needs to consider that, take that into consideration when they're making these decisions, because on one hand, we are trying to bring in new businesses that will generate tax revenue that is not residential. But you slap a moratorium on something like that, that is that general, that could really have long-term repercussions. So, I know it's not a decision for you to make, but I mean, it's just,
No, I agree.
I do agree that this might be something that this board could send a memo of just, because we look at it from a different perception.
No, well, that's-
receptive than they are.
And that's what I said from my, and when I looked at this with my, my thoughts was, this was looking at it from our point of view. So
Right.
we're looking at it from, we're looking at it from our little, viewpoint. And, still knowing the fact that the first thing that I start off with is that, the planning board understands the limitation of the sewer capacity. We got it. We're running out. We got to think about how we're going to use what's left, and we're going to have to consider that.
And you made a good point in there that 40B developments, giving them a priority. There are 40B developments that work very well for the town, but there are 40B developments that, while we may get 1 or 2 units
Right.
towards our 40B numbers, we get so many more non-40Bs that, in effect, it actually makes our percentage worse.
We need
And people,
rental buildings.
right,
We count the whole building.
exactly, but in this instance, saying, okay, 40Bs would get priority, that's, not necessarily, I don't think would be beneficial, because a lot of the 40Bs, that,
No, I know.
as you said, they're not rentals, they're not middle, and the 40Bs don't even take into consideration, right now, the state has more of a concern on middle income housing. There's been a push for so long for low income housing, and then because of the cost of real estate, there's so much high end housing that housing in the 200 to 300 is non-existent in this state, and so
People are getting squeezed.
All right.
absolutely
So
too many ways.
thank you for your comments and thoughts on that. The next thing is we're going to approve the minutes remote from June 8th, 2021, and
And I
you
have to abstain, so
and
can-
Nicole has to abstain.
So can they
Put
vote?
that on for August 10th.
Yeah, and we'll have to do the same thing with the minutes from June 22nd, so. All right, I do have the update on stuff that's going on in town, which I'm going to make very brief. The Dover Road residents, Anthology at Millis, they're actually going to start building there. We had a meeting which we talked about some landscaping issues, which they corrected. And so that's actually going to get started, which is good. Let's see here. 617 Therapeutics is still under review. GTE, 1480 Main Street, that one has been asked for a continuance. We just had that today. And Versa Wellness, the host agreement has been signed. That's the one at the Collett, and it had a public outreach meeting on July 8th. Oh, sorry, that wasn't, that's it, that's 1375, sorry. They had, that's the one across from there. The Collett building, they're putting in the solar panels, which seems to be going slowly. 114 Union Street, that's the old Herman Shoe, that is still, they're doing some testing with the PFAS standards. They're going to,
Holding that up?
no, they're going to submit a water and sewer extension permit to the select board in July, so I think that means they're kind of still pushing that out. What else? Woodlands, the select board approved their water and sewer application. I think that's a while ago. I don't know, he doesn't update, I have to get that. DPW building, windows have been installed. The roof is on, the drainage system is complete. They're working on the final sewer hookup. There was a bit of an issue with trying to figure out a way to tie that in, but we worked through that. 376 Orchard Street, that's the Sparhawk. They've actually taken some trees down and have gotten started on some of the site work. There's a couple of different affordable housing items that are going in. 1344 Main Street has gone in. Emerson Place, they're still several weeks from starting that. 1178 Main Street in Hammond Lane. The developer actually got a water and sewer that was granted at the select board's meeting. That was the one over next to the bowling alley. Let's see, what's, Braun property, the town is now working to secure a bond for the purchase. Funding should be available in September. And then on the PFAS, which is the issue with the water, forever chemicals that they found in the water, according to new DEP testing, they're going to be, they're doing a design on the plant that we may have to need to treat the water, and complete funding for the treatment plan is planned for the November 21 town meeting. So, those are the updates.
If we could schedule September and October, that would be great.
Yep.
September 7th is the Tuesday after Labor Day. September 14th is the following Tuesday.
Okay, so we have August 10th, September. Wait a minute, no, that's the, hold on, I don't think we've got enough that far. Let's do the 7th, if everyone's okay
Does that
with that.
work for everyone?
It's,
7th?
okay,
September 7th, okay. And then for October, the 5th or the 12th? The
man,
11th is the Monday.
you're bringing me down, we're already in October, the summer's gone.
The
Practically Christmas.
The 5th is difficult for me.
Fine, 12th,
12th? Okay.
12th is it?
Thanks.
Very good.
So you have to make sure that's not like my anniversary or something.
Exactly.
No, that it is, I'm good.
So our next meeting then is August 10th, and we'll be in person here on 220.
Okay. All right, so anyone else, anything else? All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Great. All right, thank you upstairs.